The Narrative State Podcast with Sabrina Speakeasy. If you want to understand how America thinks, don't study politics, study movies. Because movies do something politicians can't. They make power feel emotional, heroic, and inevitable. Today we're talking about how Hollywood functions as a soft propaganda arm. Not in some spooky CIA mind control way, but in a much more effective way. It teaches Americans how power is supposed to feel. And once you've trained people emotionally, you don't need to convince them rationally. Did you know the Pentagon has a production department? It's public record. If a movie studio wants aircraft carriers, jets, military bases, soldiers, access to classified adjacent equipment, they have to submit their script to the Department of Defense. The DoD will give support only if the story portrays the military positively, avoids certain political critiques, follows narrative guidelines. This isn't a secret shadow cabal. It's brand management. And it's how Hollywood became America's most successful national myth-making machine. So today, we're looking at 3 films that reveal the template. Wag the Dog, Manufactured Crisis, or as the conspiracy theorists say, False Flag. Dave, Competence Fantasy. Top Gun, Militarized Glamour. 3 films that illustrate how reality is downstream from cinema. Wag the Dog. Reality as a production problem. Wag the Dog starts with a simple premise. If the president is in trouble, distract the public with a fake war. The film shows a Hollywood producer, a political fixer, a made-up enemy nation, a manufactured soldier hero, a theme song, Hey Willie Nelson, patriotic media beats. Sound familiar? It's satire, but it plays like a documentary now, because Wag the Dog reveals the most important truth of the narrative state. A story doesn't have to be true. It just has to be convincing. And once you've emotionally convinced the public, once they've absorbed the imagery, the soundtrack, the urgency, the facts can't catch up. Cinema outruns reality. Now let's talk about Dave, the 1993 feel-good comedy where Kevin Kline plays a presidential body double who ends up running the country better than the real guy. It sounds silly, but it tells you exactly what Americans secretly want from politics. Competence, kindness, common sense, hiring people with actual expertise, budgeting like adults, treating citizens like human beings. There's a scene where Dave brings in Charles Grodin, a CPA, to help fix the federal budget. It's framed like, wow, what if the government was run by people who know how to manage things? This is why Dave hits so deeply. It gives the audience permission to believe that politics isn't broken. Leaders are just morally unserious. And for a moment, you're tricked into thinking, oh, maybe all we need is a decent person with executive functioning skills. This is the HR manager theory of government, which brings me to one of my favorite parts of Ferris Bueller's philosophy. Isms, in my opinion, are not good. A person should not believe in an ism. He should believe in himself. Then he pivots hard into reality. I do have a test today that wasn't bullshit. It's on European socialism. But I'm not European. I don't plan on being European. So who gives a crap if they're fascist anarchists? It still doesn't change the fact that I don't own a car and I have to bum rides off people. Bumming rides off people hits different when you're disabled, poor, or just living in America's logistical incompetence. Isms don't solve shit. Real life does. Movies like Dave make governing look so simple that the audience forgets politics is structurally corrupt, not personally messy. Then there's Top Gun, which may be the most successful propaganda film ever produced by the United States. The film sells adrenaline, fast planes, brotherhood, danger, swagger, military glory, and a faceless enemy. A purely emotional definition of patriotism. The impact was measurable. Navy recruitment skyrocketed. People enlisted because the movie made war look sexy. This is not subversion, it's collaboration. When the Pentagon gives you equipment with billions to film with, you're not telling your own story. You're laundering theirs. And it works because Top Gun doesn't bother with geopolitics. There's no moral complexity. There's no history. There's just the good guys, the jets, the anthem, the spectacle. War becomes a vibe, not a policy. Cinema as emotional pre-framing for real events. Here's the psychological punchline. Cinema doesn't tell us what to think. It tells us how power should feel. So when real politics happen, people reach for cinematic emotional templates. Is this like Wag the Dog? Is this like Top Gun? Is this like Dave? Is this like The West Wing? Is this like Homeland? The emotions are already installed. This is why inauguration events use John Williams style music. You're meant to feel a certain way. You're meant to associate leadership with swelling orchestral nostalgia from the 1950s and 1960s. This is why every president since Reagan has understood that their job is half governing and half casting. Politics is produced. Leadership is scored. National identity is storyboarded. And the public absorbs it at a pre-conscious level. So why does reality begin to imitate cinema? Here's where the narrative state gets dangerous. When political actors know Hollywood shapes public emotion, they begin performing government as theater. This can look like symbolic gestures with no policy backing, war that begins with a soundtrack, speeches written like trailers, candidates cast like archetypes, military events filmed like IMAX, disaster response filmed for campaign ads, public appearances treated as cinematic beats. Cinema becomes a feedback loop with real power. Eventually, the difference between the movie and the governance collapses. And that collapse is the actual conspiracy. Not some hidden cabal, but the merging of Hollywood logic with statecraft. Wag the Dog shows you crisis as production. Dave shows you competence as fantasy. Top Gun shows you militarism as lifestyle branding. Together, they demonstrate the core truth of the narrative state. America isn't governed. It's emotionally engineered. And once the emotions are primed, you don't need truth. You just need spectacle. Next episode, we move from the Hollywoodized governance to the narrators of the 21st century. Ex-CIA podcasters, conspiracy geeks, the Skinwalker Ranch science bros, and the lone gunman archetype reborn. Because when the government loses control of the storyline, someone else always steps in to tell it. That's the narrative state. Keep an open mind, but don't believe the bullshit.